I never thought a credit card alert would be the moment my marriage died. It was a Tuesday, quiet, gray, ordinary in that way that makes you believe nothing terrible is coming. I was standing in the kitchen of our suburban Connecticut home, rinsing a mug that still smelled like burnt coffee, when my phone buzzed against the granite counter. A soft vibration. Easy to ignore. I almost did. Instead, I glanced down. Chase alert, $1,842.76, Lux Lane Boutique, Soho, NY. The cardholder name attached to the alert wasn't mine. It was my mother-in-law. Linda Harris. I stared at the screen longer than made sense, like if I looked hard enough, the letters would rearrange themselves into something harmless. Linda lived in New Jersey. She hated the city. She said Manhattan made her anxious, that the noise scraped her nerves raw. She especially hated Soho, called it pretentious, overpriced, full of women who didn't know their place. I dried my hands on a dish towel and unlocked the phone again, checking the location. Soho, Lux Lane Boutique. A place I recognized instantly because 6 months earlier my husband, Mark, had casually mentioned buying a client gift there. He said it the way people say things they don't want questions about. I told myself it meant nothing. People shop. Credit cards get shared. Linda had always been generous with Mark, too generous. She helped him through grad school, covered his first car payment, slipped him cash like a secret handshake. It was her way of staying relevant, of keeping a hand on the wheel of his life. Still, my chest felt tight. I opened our shared calendar. Mark was supposed to be in Boston that day, an overnight conference, he'd said. He'd left before dawn, kissed my forehead like muscle memory, and promised to call. He hadn't. I tried calling him then, straight to voicemail. I called Linda next. It rang and rang, no answer. I stood there in the kitchen, the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking too loudly, the house suddenly unfamiliar. I told myself to breathe. I told myself not to spiral, but the thought slipped in anyway, cold and precise. What if they're together, not Mark and Linda, something worse? I canceled the card 20 minutes later. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no trembling hands. I logged into the account Linda had added me to years ago. For emergencies, she'd said, smiling too wide, and clicked a button. Suspend card, a confirmation screen appeared. I hesitated for half a second, then confirmed. Immediately, my phone buzzed again. Chase alert, transaction declined. I felt it then. A strange electric calm, like the moment before a storm breaks. My phone rang. Linda's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. What did you do? She demanded, skipping hello. Her voice was sharp, breathless, like she'd been caught running. I canceled the card, I said. My own voice surprised me, steady, flat. You had no right, she snapped. I was in the middle of shopping, I finished. In Soho, silence, then a laugh too quick to be real. I don't know what you think you saw. I saw the charge, I said. $1,842.76, Lux Lane. Another pause. I imagined her eyes darting around, calculating. Linda was a master of that, finding angles, exits, ways to turn blame into fog. I was buying something for Mark, she said finally. A surprise. My stomach clenched. Funny, I said, because Mark S. supposed to be in Boston. She exhaled sharply. Plans change. So does trust, I said. She hung up on me. I stood there for a long time after that, phone pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. The house felt too big, too quiet. I walked upstairs, past the framed wedding photos, Mark and me laughing under a canopy of lights, Linda between us in one shot, her hand possessive on his arm. I went into our bedroom and opened Mark's dresser. I wasn't looking for anything specific, that's what I told myself. But my hands moved like they already knew where to go. Back left corner, under the socks, I found the receipt. Lux Lane Boutique, dated that morning. 2 items. One labeled silk wrap dress, midnight blue. I sat down hard on the bed. I knew that dress. I'd seen it before. Not in person, on Instagram, on her. Her name was Ava Collins, 28, a junior associate at Mark's firm. I knew her because Mark had mentioned her once at dinner, calling her ambitious in a way that made my skin crawl. I knew her because her face had started appearing in my suggested follows: dark hair, glossy smiles, pictures taken in places Mark claimed to hate. Places like Soho. My phone buzzed again. A text this time from Mark. Running late, call you tonight. Love you. I felt something inside me fracture, not break cleanly but splinter. Love you. The words felt obscene. I didn't reply. Instead, I packed a small bag, not to leave, not yet, but to feel like I could. I folded clothes carefully, like precision could keep me from unraveling. I took my laptop, my passport, the folder where I kept copies of our financials. Years of quiet preparation, born from living under Linda's shadow, suddenly made sense. By evening, I was sitting in the dark living room when the front door opened. Mark stepped in, smiling, loosening his tie. Hey, he said like it was any other day. Sorry I'm late. I didn't move. He noticed then, the stillness, the way I was watching him. What's wrong? He asked. I held up my phone. Were you in Soho today? His smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. No, he said too quickly. Why? I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but my voice didn't. Your mother's credit card was used at Lux Lane for a dress I've seen on Ava Collins. The room went very quiet, Mark's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. You're jumping to conclusions. Am I asked, because I canceled the card, and she called me furious, and I found the receipt in your drawer. He looked at the floor, that was when I knew. Not when he confessed he didn't, not then, but when he couldn't look at me anymore. She needed help, he said weakly. Ava, she's going through something, I laughed. It came out wrong, sharp and loud. So my mother-in-law buys your mistress a dress? She's not, he stopped, swallowed. It's complicated. No, I said, it's not. Linda called again that night. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her tone syrupy now, trying a different mask. We need to talk, she said. You're misunderstanding things. I deleted it. That night, Mark slept on the couch, or pretended to. I lay awake upstairs, staring at the ceiling, replaying years of small moments I'd brushed aside. Linda's comments about my clothes, her insistence on managing Mark's finances for his own good, the way she defended Ava at a holiday party, calling her refreshing. By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't revenge, not yet, it was clarity. I called the credit card company and closed the account permanently. I transferred my half of our savings into a separate account. I emailed a lawyer a friend had once recommended, framing it as seeking information. Then I did something Linda never expected. I invited her to lunch. She arrived at the cafe smiling, all polished composure, pearls at her throat. I'm glad you reached out, she said, patting my hand like a benediction. Families have misunderstandings. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was a photo Ava had posted that morning, wearing the midnight blue dress, tagged in Soho, tagged with Linda. Linda's smile froze. You helped him cheat, I said softly. You didn't just know, you participated. Her eyes hardened. I protected my son, she said. You were holding him back. Something settled inside me then, a finality. Lunch is on me, I said, standing up. Enjoy what you bought. As I walked out, my phone buzzed again. A notification from the bank, account closed. I stepped into the sunlight, heart pounding, knowing this was only the beginning. The days after that lunch moved strangely, slow in my body, fast on the calendar. Every hour felt weighted, like I was wading through water, but when I looked back, whole chunks of my life were suddenly gone. Habits erased. Illusions burned clean. Mark didn't fight me at first. That should have been the first sign that this wasn't just an affair, it was a surrender. He hovered, cautious, like someone afraid to make noise in a house already collapsing. I can explain, he kept saying. I'm sure you can, I replied every time, but I'm not interested. That drove him crazy, not anger, absence. Linda had trained him to believe that if he just talked long enough, someone would bend, that explanations were currency, that women existed to eventually soften. I didn't. 3 days after I canceled the card, Ava blocked me on social media. I hadn't followed her, hadn't commented, hadn't liked a single photo, but she blocked me anyway, which told me everything I needed to know. People only do that when they're afraid of being seen. Mark finally admitted it the following Sunday. We were sitting at opposite ends of the dining table, the one Linda had insisted on buying for us because good marriages eat together. His hands were shaking. Started last year, he said, after your dad got sick. That landed like a slap. So while I was flying back and forth to help my mother, I said slowly, you were sleeping with a woman your mother picked out like a dress. It wasn't like that, he said quickly. Ava understood me, she didn't need so much. I nodded. I needed my husband. Apparently that was too much. He tried to reach for me then. I stood up before he could touch my hand. Don't, I said. You lost that privilege. That night, I emailed the lawyer again. This time, I used the word divorce. Linda showed up at the house unannounced 2 days later. I was in the home office reviewing bank statements when I heard her heels on the hardwood, confident, territorial, like she still belonged there. I didn't look up when she came into the doorway. You're tearing this family apart, she said. I kept typing. You think you're clever, she continued. But you're making a mistake. Mark needs guidance. I finally turned my chair to face her. He's 36, Linda, not a child. He is my son, and he was my husband, I said. Was? Her lips thinned. You'll regret this. That was when I stood up. No, I said calmly. You will, she laughed. And how exactly do you plan to punish me? You already canceled the card. Childish, by the way. I smiled then, not wide, not cruel, just enough. I didn't cancel it to hurt you, I said. I canceled it to document you. Her laughter stopped. I walked past her to the printer and pulled out a folder. Inside were statements, receipts, timelines. Linda had been careless, used the card for Ava repeatedly. Hotels, flights, gifts. Thousands of dollars funneled into a relationship she thought she could hide behind motherhood. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, I said, and my accountant, and yesterday to Mark's firm. Her face went gray. You wouldn't, she whispered. I did. Mark worked in a company that preached ethics like scripture. Nepotism was frowned upon. Funding an affair with family money, that was radioactive. Linda sank into a chair. You're vindictive. No, I said, I'm finished being convenient. She stood abruptly, knocking the chair back. If you go through with this, Mark will never forgive you. I met her eyes. He already didn't. She left without another word. The fallout was immediate. Mark was placed on administrative leave pending review. Ava quietly resigned a week later, her LinkedIn updated with a vague post about new beginnings that no one liked. Linda stopped answering Mark's calls. And me? I slept better than I had in years. Not perfectly. There were nights I woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there, grief sneaking in like fog, but beneath it was something solid, self-respect, relief. The divorce moved faster than I expected. Mark didn't contest much. He looked smaller every time I saw him, like a man realizing too late that loyalty, once broken, doesn't regenerate. At mediation, he tried one last time. She meant nothing, he said, eyes wet. You're my real family. I thought of Linda's hand on his arm in our wedding photo, of Ava in that blue dress, of myself shrinking for years to keep peace. I was your family, I said. You chose differently. The papers were signed 2 months later. I moved out of the house and into a smaller place near the water. I painted the walls white. I bought furniture no one else approved. I learned how quiet peace could be. Linda never apologized, but she lost something else instead: control. Last I heard, she'd maxed out another card trying to help Mark land on his feet. He moved back in with her. Ava moved on. Life rearranged itself without consulting me, and for the first time, that felt okay. One evening, as the sun set over the river, my phone buzzed with a familiar name: Mark. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then I turned the phone face down and poured myself a glass of wine. Some transactions, once declined, are never reopened. The quiet after the divorce felt louder than the fights ever had. At first, I didn't trust it. I kept waiting for something else to break, another shoe to drop, another phone call that would drag me back into the chaos. Trauma does that. It convinces you that calm is just a pause before the next disaster. But days passed, then weeks, and nothing exploded. I settled into my new apartment slowly, the way you test the temperature of water before stepping in. I learned how the sunlight moved across the living room in the mornings, how the floors creaked near the balcony door, how the river outside changed color depending on the hour. No one criticized my choices. No one rearranged my life for my own good. For the first time in years, my space reflected me. Mark emailed once after the papers were finalized. Not a plea, not an apology, just a long, rambling message about confusion, about how he felt caught between women his entire life, about how his mother meant well. He said he hoped we could be friends someday. I read it once. Then again, then I archived it. Some bridges don't need to be burned. They just need to be left behind. A month later, I ran into Linda unexpectedly. I was at the grocery store, standing in line with a basket full of things Mark used to complain about: organic fruit, expensive coffee, flowers I didn't need a reason to buy. I heard her voice before I saw her, sharp, familiar, still trying to command a room. When I turned, she was staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The cashier cleared her throat awkwardly. Linda looked smaller, not physically but energetically. The certainty she once wore like armor was gone. You look well, she said finally, not warmly, not cruelly, just factual. So do you? I replied, because it was easier than telling the truth. She nodded once, like she was checking something off a list. Mark's figuring things out. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it in a distant, humane way. Wishing someone peace doesn't require proximity. She hesitated, then said, I did what I thought was best. I studied her face, the lines, the pride, the fear underneath it all. Years ago, I might have argued, might have begged her to understand, might have tried to prove my worth. Instead, I said, I know. That seemed to unsettle her more than anger ever had. We paid, we left, our carts rolled in opposite directions, and that was it. No dramatic confrontation, no last confession, just two women exiting the same chapter through different doors. The real ending came later, quietly. One evening, as I was unpacking the last box from the move, I found an old envelope tucked between photo albums. Inside was a copy of our wedding vows. Mine, handwrit, his typed. I read mine first. I'd promised partnership, respect, honesty. I'd promised to choose him even when it was hard. I realized then that I had kept every one of those promises. I hadn't failed. I hadn't been naive. I hadn't been weak. I had been loyal in a system that rewarded betrayal. I folded the vows carefully and placed them back in the envelope, not as a relic of shame, but as proof. Then I tucked them into a drawer and closed it. Some memories don't need to be destroyed, they just need boundaries. A year later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Linda no longer controlled Mark's finances. That detail mattered more than anything else. Control was her language, losing it was her reckoning. As for Ava, she vanished from my orbit entirely. New city, new relationship. New curated happiness. I didn't look her up. Closure doesn't require updates. What surprised me most was how little bitterness I carried. I'd imagined revenge would feel explosive, cinematic, but the most satisfying justice wasn't loud at all. It was waking up without dread. It was making decisions without asking permission. It was realizing that the moment I canceled that credit card, I hadn't just stopped a transaction, I'd stopped participating in my own erasure. People ask sometimes how I knew it was over, how I found the strength to leave. They expect a dramatic answer. The truth is simpler. I got tired of being quiet to keep other people comfortable. I chose myself. And that choice didn't destroy my life, it gave it back to me.